Welcome, everyone. On behalf of Columbia University, the Masters in Wealth Management, and the School of Professional Studies, it is an honor to you all to this, our 10th Speaker Series event, where from time to time, we invite industry thought leaders and practitioners to come and share with us their perspectives on our fast-evolving wealth management industry. My name is Philip Hecker. I am a member of the Wealth Management Advisory Council, and I'll be your moderator today. In terms of housekeeping, real quick, this webinar is being recorded, and you can enjoy a replay later on the Columbia Wealth Management website. To frame our conversation on the power of the niche, I will screen share a few slides to get us going. And I will start today with a quick definition of the term niche or niche. Let's all agree how we pronounce it. There are different ways leading to Rome. More importantly, though, in terms of a niche or niche, it is being described by Google as a comfortable or suitable position in life or employment. Similar terms are, as you can see here, a calling, a vocation, which resonated with me very much. And under number 2 of the noun, it can be a specialized segment of the market for a particular kind of product or service. So niching is all about focusing in, deeply understanding the needs and opportunities of a particular set of clients, and then serving them better than anyone else. The case for niching has been made many times over. Some of the most compelling data and perspectives I was able to find comes from the famous industry blogger and researcher, Michael Kitces, who studied and compared in a broad research study top performers, advisors that don't niche versus those that do niche. And as you can see here, the benefits of niching are along multiple dimensions. Advisors who niche spend more time with their clients and prospects actually advising and engaging them. They offer more focused, more robust, more customized financial planning processes. They have higher loading ratios, perhaps surprisingly, 14 on average higher loading ratios. Those clients in turn have higher investable assets and net worth levels, and advisors who can niche, according to Kitces, are able to charge 9% higher AUM fees, leading to, at the very bottom, meaningfully higher average income for the advisor when they niche versus if they don't. In addition, Kitces spent some time defining the multiple dimensions of niching that exists, the multiple ways in which advisors can choose to focus. 6 different types of niches being outlined here. And when you look at the distribution of what % of advisors that niche actually fall into 1 or 2 of those categories, on the right of the page, you can see it's a pretty even distribution, with professional focus and technical focus being the 2 most popular ways of niching. And just a sneak peek, I'm thrilled that on today's panel, we have 2 advisors, from each of those buckets, really bringing those different ways of niching to life. So in a panel conversation, before I weave in our great panelists, allow me to briefly give you an outlook of the arc of today's conversation and introduce the Columbia program to you all. Columbia's wealth management program is a 16-month part-time online program that prepares experienced and aspiring wealth management professionals to meet the many challenges and opportunities in our industry. It is the only Masters in Wealth Management currently offered by an Ivy League institution, and it also prepares our students with all the educational requirements to attain the Certified Financial Planner designation. Should you wish to learn more, simply type Columbia University and Wealth Management into a web browser of your choice. With respect to the arc of today's conversation, First, we'll have a panel discussion, getting our guests' thoughts on if and how they niche, what benefits and challenges they encounter, and last not least, tangible tips on how to deal with those. Towards the end, we'll open it up for a Q&A session with our students and faculty. So folks on the line, everyone, please, as we go along, feel free to type your questions into the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen, and we'll feed them to our panelists towards the end. And with that, it is my great privilege and pleasure to introduce our very special guests for today, who will really shed light on this important topic from a number of angles. We are joined today by Anne Garcia, financial advisor at Independent Progressive Advisors. Anne is dialing in from Portland, Oregon. We are also joined by Mary McDermott, COO and Special Needs Financial Planner at All Needs Planning. Mary is joining us from Spokane, Washington. From Casper, Wyoming, being on the road, we are joined today by Kate Redden, Regional Director and Partner at Merit Financial Advisors. And last not least, dialing in from Sioux Falls, we have Adam Cox, Chief Wealth Management Officer at the First National Bank in Sioux Falls. Great set of panelists. Welcome to you all. I hope you're as excited as me about the great cross-section of firm types, sizes, and mindsets that we have on the panel today. We will ask now the panelists to briefly introduce themselves, to share their background, their current position, and describe their business, their practice for our audience. If we could take roughly 3 minutes each, that would be great. Our sequence for today will always be Anne, Mary, Kate, and then Adam. And with that, Anne, let's weave you in. Welcome, and please share your background.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm a partner at Independent Progressive Advisors, which is a small fee-only RIA based in Portland, Oregon. We serve about 120 households. There are 2 of us here, and we're trying to keep it at about 120 households. One of the challenges of having a successful niche is that it doesn't want to stay at that number. I'm probably better known in the advisor community and even the community at large as the college financial lady and the author of How to Pay for College, which is a little bit of a spoiler alert on my niche. We, as a firm, we serve mid-career professionals with competing financial objectives. And so my partner and I have each developed different specialties in that regard. I am also a career changer. So I spent the early part of my career working in tech and then transitioned over to the advisory side about 15 years ago for a variety of reasons. I've worked for a couple of small local RIAs, and then about 9 years ago, I was approached by another advisor in the community who was retiring and wanted me to take over her practice, which I did. And then I brought on a partner, and that's kind of where we are right now.
And the rest is history, as they say. And by the way, and dealing with the pain of growth is a great set of, pain to deal with. I'm sure we'll double click on that in a minute. Welcome. Great to have you. Over to Mary.
Yeah, thank you. Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me as well. I am a career shifter. I am the eldest millennials of the millennials. I am a special needs parent, and I also am a parent of a wonderful A-type 10-year-old and a wife of my husband, Jay McDermott. So that's me in a nutshell. I help families with special needs children, dependents, do their planning, because when I started this industry, I was pregnant with my daughter, Ruth, who has a rare disease. So I came out of that knowing my plan was completely hosed and realized the lens of those families and how different the planning is. Our structure is we have 3 partners, myself, who started in the broker-dealer side of the world, so the insurance side of the world, was always a planner, just never charged for it until I got enough confidence to do that, and then never turned back. I just switched to the RIA model almost exactly a year ago. And my other partners, Kristen and Kathy. Kathy actually has a PhD in behavior. So we have someone on our staff that has no financial background, but our families need that heavily. And then Kristen started on the investment side. So she is heavy investment. So from all three of our points of view, we can kind of cover our families in the way that they need.
Mary, great to have you as well. Cannot wait to hear more about your journey, and thank you for teeing up already the notion of having multifunctional resources at the ready to really meet the needs of demanding segments on multiple fronts. Kate, over to you for your introduction.
Okay, I had to unmute myself. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on this topic. I do love this topic. My name is Kate Redden. I am a financial advisor with Merit Financial Advisors. I have actually been in the industry for more than 30 years now. This is all I've ever done as a financial advisor, most all of that time. I did not really understand until later in my career the power of the niche, and so this is definitely a very relevant conversation. I had my own business for a while, and then recently, or about 3 years ago, sold to Merit as a larger firm. I actually run the Colorado region for Merit. I also work with about 100 high net worth households myself. And my niche has developed over time. As we get into talking more about that, I'll explain it's probably not a pure niche as much as I wish it was, and I'll explain the reasons for that. But I definitely have found myself focusing in a couple of areas over the last decade or so of my career. Merit is a large RIA based out of Atlanta, Georgia. We are about a $12 billion firm right now, growing pretty dramatically. And so really helping our younger advisors understand how that growth is really most effective, you know, the niche as well as specializing, et cetera. And so we do have a number of younger advisors that we get to pour into, which makes this conversation even more relevant.
Great to have you, Kate. Your wealth of experience and your unique perspective, being both a producing advisor and a manager of others, helping them on their journeys in a larger platform, will be invaluable to our students today. Last not least, Adam Cox, bring us home. Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us today. I'm excited about this conversation. So, as Phil mentioned, my name is Adam Cox. I'm the Chief Wealth Management Officer of First National Bank in Sioux Falls, and I'm located right on a busy road, in case you didn't hear the pipes in that vehicle. I lead a team of about 42 wealth management professionals, all located here in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And we've got clients in 48 states and several countries at this point. Our history has leaned heavily into personal trust services, but as we've grown, we've added retirement plan services for small and mid-sized businesses. We work with a lot of not-for-profits investing their money. And then more recently, we've had a fast-growing wealth advisory and then family office practice on top of that. So I myself don't have any client responsibilities per se. I am involved in some client relationships inside of a niche. So I'm excited to talk about that, but my primary responsibility is leading the firm of advisors.
Great to have you as well, Adam. A true management perspective from a bank affiliated, client-centric wealth management business, completing and bringing to life the good, multi-firm size and structure comment I made earlier on. Thrilled to explore this topic from both the angle of small owner operators with a deep niche to large nationwide RIAs and bank affiliated wealth management offerings. Adam, you are quote unquote management only, having the horizontal view across the enterprise at large. Kate, as we mentioned, you wear both hats, and then Anne and Mary are really in the trenches doing it day in, day out, which will be great for our conversation. Before we turn to niching itself, let's get to know you at a personal level. Quickly, just a little better. Our students always enjoy that. So please, an icebreaker speed round. Couple of quick questions, looking for quick answers in the usual cadence. Unmute yourself so you can fire away. First off, your favorite book of all time. And the
order,
usual
Philip,
sequence, you're going first.
I'm going first. I would say my all-time favorite book is totally irrelevant to this conversation. It's Heart of Darkness. My current favorite book in the current climate is really anything trashy fiction, just pure escapism.
Excellent. Mary?
I am re-listening to Good Inside Always by Dr. Becky Kennedy. I'm a parent and I have a lot of clients that are parents, and it's a parenting book, but it's also just deal with your own stuff so you can be a good person to other people. And then right now, The Wild Robot. Man, if you haven't seen the movie, you haven't read the book with your kids, like it's fast, it's like very amazing to accomplish, to read a book in a week. If you need something to be like, I did this week, that one is the one you should do.
Excellent. Kate?
That's a tough question for me because it's always about what's right in front of me. So I would say my most recent impactful book that would be my favorite is a book called Know What You're For by Jeff Henderson. It explores the topic of, what do you want to be known for and what are you known for and how do you bridge that gap between the two? But honestly, anything by Malcolm Gladwell, Michael Lewis, or Adam Grant would be my favorite.
Some of the classics. Adam?
So I think a lot about how to build brands. And so one of my favorite, most recent books would be Building a Story Brand. Really delves into marketing and how to build an enterprise, which I just find fascinating.
Some wonderful tips. Let's stay in the realm of tips and perhaps dial in more on our industry to stay current on our fast evolving industry. What do you listen to? What pods are on heavy rotation, or what websites do you go and check out to get and stay current on wealth management? Usual sequence and fire away.
In our space, I think you can't not listen to Michael Kitces. So that's always top of my list for advisor stuff. I also really enjoy Lizanne Saunders from Schwab and her market related information.
A previous guest in the speaker series. If you want to get more of Lizanne Saunders, then check out our repertoire, our library of previous speaker series, and you're following in her footsteps. Mary?
Of course, kids, that's just the answer. But FPA, our local FPA chapter is pretty active, and I'm going to see Michael Kids tomorrow because he's coming to our FPA group. And then I'm part of WIFS, so Women in Insurance and Financial Planning.
Great. Kate, any tips?
So of course, Michael Kitces, but in case those listening don't know, there's two podcasts actually that I listen to featuring Michael Kitces. One is the Advisor Success podcast, which I think is the one most people know about. But then he also has kind of an offshoot called Kitces and Carl, with he and a friend who kind of talk about two sides of an issue. And so that's also a really good one that maybe gets a little less press. But other than Michael Kitces, I actually am always making sure I hear Bob Dawes. He does a weekly commentary called Dawes Deliberations. So I read that every Monday. He's an equity strategist, and he just has a really good perspective on the economy and the markets. And then another favorite is Vinny Curavilla with Eventide. He is an MD, a PhD, and a portfolio manager. So probably one of the most intelligent people I've ever listened to. So always fascinating to hear his take on markets and economy as well.
Some great suggestions. Adam, what have you got?
I'll switch it up a little bit. I like Barron's The Way Forward. Just as far as a practice management podcast, I really enjoy that, and hearing from other advisors and leaders how they're building their practices and their businesses. But I spend a lot more time outside of the industry trying to learn. I really obsess about the client experience. And so I have become really fascinated with listening to podcasts and reading about service industries and how other industries make their clients and guests feel, and try to implement those things in wealth management.
Excellent. I'm going to add one suggestion to that list, and that is the Diamond podcast for financial advisors, run by Mindy Diamond and her crew. She runs a business helping advisors transition from one firm to the other. So she's interested, if you will, in the topic. I recommend it here because oftentimes advisors that are being interviewed share very candid perspectives on their journeys and their decision-making processes as they move from one firm to the other. And, seeing the world through their eyes can be a wonderful opportunity to learn and better understand. With that, let's shift gears to the topic at hand, niching. You alluded to your thinking, your positioning in your opening statements to some degree already. Let's double click on that, however. So in this round, 3 minutes each, typical cadence, and to start, what niche or niches exactly do you focus on and why? And take us away.
Yeah, we have actually a broad niche in our business, which is mid-career professionals with competing financial goals. And we chose this niche because we felt like it gave us a better opportunity to say yes to clients. So yes, if that's important to you, here's how you do it. Here's how you need to save. Sure, you can have the vacation house. That probably means working a year longer. We found when people would come to us right at retirement or immediately before retirement, when they had a really fixed retirement date in their mind that was pretty short term, that we spent a lot of time saying, well, if that's really your top priority, here are the things that we need to cut back. So we felt like, hey, if we could get people in the door maybe 10 years earlier, so we're building a plan that allows them to live their best lives now and in the future, and give them a level of confidence in and clarity about what they're doing and how they're going to get there, and how they accomplish these things that are important to them, that would actually be a more rewarding way to work with people than telling them, I'm sorry, but your savings don't support a trip to Europe every year when you're in retirement. But our approach to that broad niche is that my partner and I each focused on sort of specialties within that niche. So mine is college planning. And I started doing that really because the first firm I worked with, one of the partners came to me one day and said, one of our clients has questions about how to pay for college, and I'm really not interested in that topic. Do you want to figure it out? And I had two immediate reactions. One was, he's probably not the only advisor who isn't interested in this, so I could probably be the industry expert in it. And the other was, I'm a parent of two kids. I need to know this for myself. And so I pursued that topic, and that's kind of my area of focus. My partner, Scott, is a CDFA, which is a certified divorce financial analyst, another common issue that clients in our demographic face. And so each of those provide great opportunities, not just for knowledge and for positioning ourselves as experts, but for networking within the community, whether it's COIs, for Scott, that's divorce attorneys and CPAs and whatnot. For me, it's parents of high school students and younger students. So that's our niche, and that's why we do it. That's not to say that is exclusively who we serve, because as your business grows, your clients refer their friends and families who may or may not be within your niche. And so we sort of jokingly say our true niche is people we like, because it's a whole lot easier to support your clients and be helpful to them and help them build that life that they want to lead when you're on their side and there's somebody you're interested in and curious about and wanting to help.
And thanks for sharing that. A quick follow-up question for you. I first came across you only last year at an industry conference. You were presenting on college planning, and the depth of your technical know-how and expertise clearly came across and was value added to consumers, individual investors, and the advisors in the room. Now, my question for you is this: besides speaking at conferences and establishing and marketing yourself that way, you have the book project. You alluded to the book in the opening comment. Can you share briefly with us the genesis behind the book and how you're using it today?
Absolutely. Early on, when I started talking about college, I realized I was answering the same questions again and again and again from clients. And so I started just writing down some standard emails that I was regularly sending. And one year, as a New Year's resolution, I decided I wanted to have a writing project. I've always enjoyed writing. And so I decided I was going to write a blog. And so I just basically took those emails and converted them into my first few blog posts. And it took on a life of its own. I got a lucky break early on in that process where literally 6 blog posts in, there was a press request from the New York Times that was about a topic that I had just written a blog post about. And so I responded to the writer. It was Ron Lieber, the personal finance columnist, and forwarded him a link to my blog post. And he ended up interviewing me for the article, as well as linking to my blog in the online version of the New York Times. So suddenly I was the college expert out there, which was a really lucky break. As time went on, I kept at the blog. It's been 10 years now, 10 plus years that I've been writing this blog. And as time went on, I started thinking about writing a book, and I really had no idea where to begin. And then coincidentally, I was listening to a Kitsis and Carl podcast, the one that Kate mentioned. And Carl Richards, who's the co-host, said, the great thing about writing, it was about writing for your practice. And Carl said, the great thing about writing a blog is it's really easy to turn it into a book. And there aren't enough books in our industry by women. So if you're a woman who wants to write a book, please reach out to me and I'll help you. And the short story is I reached out to him. He liked my writing samples. And a couple days later, I had an inquiry from a publisher who wanted my book, which is Harriman House, which is does a lot of the personal finance books. One of the things that I love about the book, and that honestly that I love about my niche, is it's a great opportunity to do a lot of pro bono work. We work with a lot of clients who get deep value from our services, but our service model really doesn't support the people who most need our advice. And so having the blog and having the book, and then I've created an online course for it, really allows me to speak to a broader audience, to those people who I feel like are really most in need of having good quality information about this topic.
Perfect. And before we move on to Mary, just real quick, that notion of packaging and scaling some of your expertise to make it available to a larger part of the client universe, super interesting and mutually beneficial as we think about, niching. With that, Mary, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so like I said, I was 4 months into this job and I was pregnant with my daughter and found out she had a rare disease. So from that point, and in the beginning, you got to help everybody. I'm sure everybody helped everybody in the beginning. There's no other way. About 4 years ago, I was like, these are the only families I'm going to help. So I'm kind of opposite of Anne. Actually, if somebody comes towards me that doesn't have my specific niche, I refer them out. Because it's not what I do every day. If I do this every day with the same families, it fills my soul. So I need that. And also I'm not good in the other space. I'm just not. So if you think of a typical family, they're piling money for college or retirement or these amazing conflicting things of a house and a vacation. Our families need to fund another person outside of just the core parents for 2 lifetimes. Okay, so we're doing cash flow for 2 lifetimes to make sure the parents can support another person through working years, retirement years, and when they're not around anymore. And so it just becomes a more intense type of planning, I would say, in that space of just not just the typical retirement type of planning. We all are trying to give these kids an amazing life that they deserve, but most of them are going to be on state and federal benefits. So that means they can't have assets directly in their name. Okay, that's a puzzle all in itself that we have to solve and help them work through so that they don't, inheritance wise, grandparents inadvertently give them assets and then they're off the state benefits. And it's the medical that really is scary if kids lose Medicaid, to be really honest. It's a very complicated puzzle. So my whole goal with our families is to make it as crayon and simple as possible, because there's 700 parts to it that we need to go down with them. The parents are already coming to us overwhelmed, exhausted, and in fight or flight, mostly. So we gotta close some tabs in their head, get them out of that state emotionally to even think about a year from now, 5 years from now, 30 years from now. We gotta like solve some things for them right off the bat just to get them emotionally ready to try and do some of this planning. So it makes a difference for families every day. I feel fulfilled every day with this because I'm one of them. My daughter's 8. She has a rare disease. We've gone through some crazy, crazy health stuff. So some days I am my best self and some days I am down here, and I am as transparent with them as I am with you today. And they get it, right? You got to be patient with them. They cancel a lot. They got a lot of stuff going on. And they do, like Anne said, they have conflicting goals. So they probably have another kiddo. How's the sibling dynamic work? So the whole of our planning is to try and make it the puzzle into bite-sized pieces so that they can handle it is probably the hardest part of what our job is to do for them.
Super helpful,
Also,
Mary. I want
kind
to
of what Anne said. Oh, sorry. What Anne said too is we have to have it scalable. So I did a ton of free work because I can't let these families not get the planning done. They can't go without it. And so we started a master class. We have a place that everybody can go because it's very hard for my heart to turn them down. So sorry, I just want to add that.
Excellent. Can you bring that masterclass or other resources, scalable resources that you offer to life real quick? What exactly is that?
Yeah, so we do presentations like everybody does all over the world for all different types of organizations. We go to conferences. So we've kind of taken segments of that and made it into bite-sized classes. And once they reach a gate point, then they get an hour of access to one of us so that we can try and get them through to the next gate. Because it's not all DIY you can do on your own. Some of it does take a little touch point to make sure that they're kind of on the right road to do it on their own. The biggest real hard part for our families is what's that big number? Like, what's the cost to have this kiddo with me forever? What is that big number? Right. So we go through a cost calculator exercise with them in that first hour break where they have with us and being like, what are you doing every day for your child? What does it look like? Unpaid labor wise is usually the hardest number to do. You can do hard costs is easy. Unpaid labor is very hard to pinpoint a number. Did that answer your question?
Super helpful. Thanks for sharing. Before we move on to Kate, one quick double click on something you said earlier on, and that is saying no to business that doesn't really fit your practice. In the beginning, hard, you may have not have been as pure in your focus as you are today.
Yeah.
Today, you've reached a stage where the practice is self-sustaining and growing with a laser focus. How do you say no? How do you refer out? That was your technical term. Can you bring that to life? How do you actually do that?
Yeah, I think I started saying no, which is a really hard exercise to do. So if you haven't done it, and I put myself through anything that doesn't apply to me. So does this require my special abilities? And what are your special abilities, right? Mine are helping these families specifically. Does it align with my community? So my community is all people with disabilities and women in our industry. So if it doesn't check those boxes, it's still a no. And where do I want, this is the hardest one. Where do I want my time and energy to go to? Okay. And you have to be a yes in all three for me to say yes to you completely. So that applies to clients, that applies to people wanting me on boards, that applies to a speaking engagement. That was applied for Philip, for me, for all three of those. So I said yes to him. If it would have been a no to Philip, I would have emailed him those things and said, I'm so sorry, it's a no in this area for me. I can find somebody else for you, hopefully that could fit this bill. So it's a general way to say no. And then I have a great resource of network of other advisors that want to help people that I'm not 100% passionate about. And you can feel that when you're in a meeting. I think the first time I took somebody on that I wasn't passionate. I'm like, oh, you're not getting the best of me. And that's not good for either of us. And I don't want that relationship.
Great. Thank you for sharing those tangible tips, how to actually do it.
Yeah.
That approach of having clearly defined criteria that you use to assess, is this new business a good fit, yes or no? Super helpful. Kate, over to you. your thoughts on the topic, perhaps both from your advisor and managerial point of view.
Yeah, so I said early on that I would, if someone asked me if I have a niche, I would say sort of. Probably the biggest reason for that is that I've just been doing this for so long that it's not a pure book of business. When I started in the industry back in the early 90s, Michael Kitces probably wasn't even around yet. I think I'm older than him. So just this concept of focusing and narrowing and niching just really wasn't a thing. And, you know, you're building a business, and it was much more of the idea of you take whatever comes along. And, you know, over time, you know, certainly I began to get a sense of, like Mary referred to, what am I passionate about? What fires me up? What am I excited to sit down and work with clients on? But by then, you know, certainly I already had a number of clients that didn't quite fit that. A couple of things around that, you know, as you grow and hire younger advisors, you certainly have the ability to, you know, to begin to filter your own book of business. So that's a wonderful, I guess, byproduct of growth and having other advisors on your team. It's also better for clients because, you know, they come to the practice and there's somebody there who can help them, even if it's not me. But my niche that over time, you know, really became what was exciting to me was around values-based investing. And that's what I have termed it. There's lots of different terms for it. You've heard of, you know, ESG, of course, you know, there's faith-based values, there's socially responsible, there's impact investing. But I've actually been doing this for a number of years, long before it was cool. It's becoming more and more mainstream as you see more and more flows of dollars are moving towards investments that align with someone's values. And you know, obviously there's many types of values and different values out there, but it's absolutely possible to align your portfolio with your values, and more people are becoming aware of that. So it's actually becoming more mainstream. I've actually been doing that for probably 20 years already. It was much harder 20 years ago. There's a lot more availability of more focused investment products nowadays. But then kind of tangentially to that, I do work with a lot of women. And it's interesting. One reason is because I just have a real heart for women who maybe have not had the focus on them over the years with education, with investing, with you know, financial planning. But there's more and more women who are you know, building their own wealth. You know, we've all heard the stats of you know, the amount of money that's being transferred from the older generation over the next 10 years or so, and most of that is going to go into the hands of women. And so just really helping women who maybe haven't in the past thought about financial planning as much or investing. But those two things, those two niches definitely overlap, because it's also true that the majority of women are more interested in aligning their investments with their values. And so that was something I was already passionate about, and then began to realize that it's a lot of women who are interested in that type of investing. And so those are you know, kind of two different niches that cross over. I did want to make a comment also that, you know, when we talk about what is a niche, and you know, someone were to ask you, you know, do you have a focus, or do you niche? Just a funny story. I had a colleague one time who someone would ask him that, and he would rattle off 8 different niches. And I finally said, you know what, those are just describing your practice. That's not really a niche. If you have more than 2 or 3, it's probably not really a niche. It's just a description of your book of business. I'd also like to, if I have another minute, Philip, you can cut me off at any time, but I would like to maybe throw out there the idea that One of the challenges and one of the things that keep people from niching is the fear of having to say no to someone or to turn someone away. And Mary was certainly talking about that becoming a reality.
I love where she was going, which is her managerial perspective on how to deal with the niching as a manager. We'll get to that when she joins us again. Let's toggle over here to you, Adam, your thoughts and perspectives on the topic, having the managerial hat on.
Yeah, so the nice thing about having kind of a leadership role in a broad financial institution is, for most people, we have a place for you. I maybe don't have the opportunity to serve everyone, but chances are we've got someone on our team that can help somebody. So we're not there yet, but I see us over time kind of combining a lot of different niches into one firm. It's difficult for a larger firm to say we're known for this one very specific thing, especially when you're attached to a bank and you have to work with bank clients and serve a few different communities. But we're certainly going to get there. So we're moving in the direction of having more niches. For me personally, I would say, at first when Philip and I talked about this, I was like, I really don't personally have a niche, but then as I thought more about it, I kind of do, and it's a different niche, but it's really a niche based on a depth of relationship. So I'm not someone who likes to, visit at cocktail parties and just surface level stuff. I'm someone who likes to have pretty intense conversations and learn a lot about people. And so where that has gone is the people that I do work with, I know really, really well, and they also know me really well. So we kind of transcend the typical boundaries of advisor clients, which I do enjoy, because we can have a whole meeting where we don't talk about financial stuff, and that's perfectly okay with all of us. So where that comes home for me, because I only have so much time to work with clients, is I do end up spending most of my time with the ultra high net worth clients that we have in the family office. They, I think, enjoy having someone who is unafraid of asking them the hard questions. And, I think a lot of people in our industry feel like you can't do that. You don't want to risk someone who's paying you hundreds of thousands of dollars by upsetting them. And I don't feel that way. And I think that's why they enjoy having me in the room. I don't add a ton of value from a tax or financial planning or investment perspective per se, but I'm not afraid to ask them about their marriage and how they're doing, or their faith life, or whatever it is. And so that depth of relationship is really probably my emerging niche.
Super helpful. Welcome back, Kate. We moved on to Adam. I'll loop you back in where you left off in a second. But first, Adam, let me double click there. You as a manager, how do you manage your team? How do you encourage them or discourage them from niching? What are some perhaps top-down managerial perspectives on the topic?
Yeah, I don't really encourage or discourage. I kind of let the advisors on our team go where they want to go, so to speak, as long as they identify a niche that's profitable, that makes them feel good, that's a set of clients that we want to work with and we want to be associated with. I'd say have at it. That stuff really doesn't matter to me. And if they don't want to work with a certain segment of clients that we do want to work with as a larger financial institution, we've got another advisor that can serve them that way. So that is not really a mandate that we have at all. I would just say we're trying to encourage people. And ultimately, I think if we're, Anne and Mary and Kate, they all have strong passions, and I want our advisors to have that passion as well. And if they come to work every day energized to serve a population of folks that works for our overall business goals, like, that's awesome. And we'll encourage it. And to the extent that we need to resource around them, we certainly will.
Got it. Super helpful. With that, let's toggle back over to Kate. Kate, we lost you where you emphasized, interestingly, that you have two sort of niche focuses that at least partially overlap when you think about, the investment mindset and the female mindset, overlapping at least partially. And I believe you were going to go to the managerial point of view. How do you manage your team? How do you foster niching within your region, within your firm?
Yeah, apologies. I don't know what happened. It just went away, and fortunately it came right back. So here I am. Yeah, I don't know exactly what I was saying. I think I said quite a lot after you lost me, but yes, I do believe that niching can be a huge benefit, not only for the advisor, but also for the client. But I don't think it has to be done that way. And so, similar to Adam, when I'm working with other advisors in my region, younger advisors, we certainly talk about it and we certainly encourage it. For a younger advisor, it's often hard for them to really know what they're passionate about just yet. Sometimes that has to evolve over time. But those who do know early on is where I find it to be really much easier in the long run to do that from the beginning, to just put yourself out there, as the expert in whatever topic it is that you have chosen as your niche, and really, be laser focused from the very beginning. And that way, the COIs that get to know you, centers of influence, they know who you are, they know who to send to you. The website that you create is laser focused. The the marketing materials that you create are laser focused. And so you really get to a place where you're not having to say no to anybody, because the only people coming to you are the ones who already know who you are, what you do, who you do it for. And just about everybody that walks in the door is a qualified prospect for you in your niche. And so, I think it was Michael Kitces who actually said, 99.9% of the people that you meet don't do business with you. So why not, really narrow that pool so that you're actually attracting a larger number of the people who really most likely would do business with you. And, he kind of looks at this topic in the opposite direction of, instead of being afraid to niche because you might have to turn people away, he says, be afraid to try to be everything to all people, because that's really hard.
Look, Kate, let me build on that. Two perspectives from my end. The days of trying to be everything to everyone equally well, if they ever existed, they might be fading. Why? Because the expectation levels keep on increasing. The regulatory environment and the needs and opportunities that creates keeps on getting more and more complex, meaning people must, in my mind at least, focus to some degree to build deep expertise in certain areas to really serve their clients well. In my mind, I compare it much to the related professional fields of law and medicine. Do you still have general doctors out there who do triaging, in a horizontal way across everything? Yeah, you do. Do you have some general lawyers out there who do a broad array of work? Yeah, you do. But most of them by now are truly specialized on a certain area of law or medicine to do justice to the opportunities and the needs in that moment in time in that field. And I think there are some parallel lessons to be learned for our industry as we think about that. With that in mind, a quick shout out. I've gotten some great questions from our students via email, but also as we go along and are about to wrap this up, fire away your questions in the Q&A box. We'll reserve 3 minutes at the end to cover at least some of them. Let's wrap this up with a speed round. Given what we've shared now, what advice would you have for young advisors or career changers entering the wealth management space? To what degree should they think about niching? And if so, how do they deal with the opportunities and the challenges, that provides? What are your tangible tips for our audience, please? And let's loop you back in.
All right, I would say two things. The first is, I think that the biggest challenge in picking a niche is picking a niche. So figuring out what it is that you're going to niche in. And I think we've all touched on this a little bit, that a great way to think about a niche is something that you personally are passionate about. Mary was passionate about solving problems for her own family. Kate was passionate about working with women and aligning and their values with their investment portfolio. Adam has a subset of clients that he likes to have specific conversations with. And for me, I was a parent and wanted to be able to put my kids through college. So I think that having something that's personally interesting to you is very sustaining over the long term. The second thing I would say is I think as you're getting started, it's really helpful to think of a niche as a goal as opposed to a starting point. And two things will happen if you don't limit yourself to only talking to your niche. One is that you will see lots and lots of different things that also might be similarly interesting to you or that might come up in your work with your niche. So for me, that was, talking to people who are part of our public employee retirement system, talking to people who received inheritances, business owners, all sorts of things that I am not necessarily a deep subject matter expert on, but now I know a whole lot more because I've had those conversations. The second thing is when you take every meeting as a young advisor, you get really good at that prospect meeting about hearing what people have to say, about responding, about listening, about asking good questions, so that when your ideal client does come in, you're good at that and you're ready to listen to them and be the advisor that they want you to be. And it makes it much easier to close those relationships. So yeah, so two things: find something that you're personally passionate about and don't limit yourself to that audience as you're getting started.
Excellent, thank you. Mary?
Yeah, I think this is so hard as a young person because I'm thinking back at my 20s. You got to know who you are. So who are you? What are your personal values? How do you align that with your job? Because I used to drive my job and be like, I can be a good person and do this job. I can be a good person and do this job. This industry's got a bad rap. I'm not going to pretend it doesn't, right? Let's put it out there if we're going to put it out there, right? So what are your current personal values and how do you find the people that have them? And it doesn't have to be as complicated as mine. I knew a guy that was very successful, that Boston Red Sox fans. That was his niche. Like legit, like he had a box. He brought clients to games. Everyone around him knew that he loved the Red Sox. And does that have anything to do with financial planning? Absolutely not. But did he want to talk baseball with them a bit? Did they all want to talk baseball a little bit at the meeting? Yes. So it doesn't have to be as intense as mine. It can be an affiliation, I think. And so do you love to run? Are you a marathon runner? Cool. Find the run groups, right? Like just like think of what you love and align it with your job a bit. And I think you will stick with it through the way longer. Stay with it. You can do it.
That's great advice, Mary. I'd like to tie it back to the opening pages I showed. As you recall, there were 6 different ways of niching, and affinity to a baseball team or whatever it might be is certainly one of them that can be quite powerful. Kate, your thoughts?
Yeah, I would say find a mentor who is maybe already focusing on a niche that you might be interested in, and just pick their brain, understand their thought process, understand how they work with clients, who they work with, how they get the right people in the door. So mentoring is always to me really, really helpful. And then become an expert. And I would say, I mean, not to be counter to what Anne was saying. I mean, you do have to decide if you're going to niche or not. But once you decide, if you decide you are, I would say you go all in and you really become an expert. And that can be designations, letters behind your name. You are not trying to be a generalist, but you really know what you want to focus on and you go all in. I think my internet connection might be unstable again, so apologies if you lose me. But there's typically going to be a designation or a course or a some sort of learning in whatever it is that you want to focus on. And so, really making yourself the expert is I think a great idea.
And then using that accreditation or whatever it might be to signal it in credible ways to the outside world. Great advice. Adam, bring us home on this topic before we wrap it up with Q&A.
Yeah, I would say don't put a lot of pressure on yourself to find a niche if you want to go that direction. It took me years. to be able to figure out what exactly I want to do. I think it's sometimes a little bit easier for people in ancillary industries. So if you're a CPA and you're coming in, you obviously have an affinity towards doing taxes and tax planning. That's a little bit easier of a shift to make. But if you're a younger, newer advisor, it can be difficult to find your way right away. So I'd say have patience. But then if you have a collection of clients, you want to figure out, well, where do I like spending my time? Rank your clients and figure out which clients do I like working with the most and what is it about them? Because I'm guessing you'll find a lot of commonalities in those clients, and you might have your niche right there. And it could be Red Sox fans. It could be whatever it is. You like to talk about certain things. You like doing this for that group of clients. That can really solicit a niche, and then lean into that. And finally, if you want to be successful at it, I think you have to solve for everything that you can think of that niche group of clients is going to deal with. So whether it's special needs or whether it's women investing or college plan, whatever it is, like find the thing that they all have in common and solve for even the questions that they don't even have on their minds.
Excellent. Great advice from all of you. With 3 minutes to go, let's address an audience question or two. One of our students, Julia, had a great set of observations and a related questions. Her observations are more than 50% of investors are female, not a niche. Yet only 14% of advisors today are female. We're still, trying hard to catch up as an industry. With 3 leading female advisors on this panel, are there any thoughts, tips you would have on the topic of becoming a successful advisor in our space from a female point of view, pertaining loosely to niching?
I think it depends a lot. There are a lot of different career paths within financial advising that you can pursue. And I think you'll find some are more male dominated and some are less male dominated. We were joking at a recent conference that the bathroom lines for women have gotten a little longer. So that should be a good sign for progress made by women in the industry. I find on the RAA side that there are a lot of women, a lot of women in our industry, and a lot of it is about finding mentors and getting the resources that you need to feel confident and successful in, as a professional in our industry. And I think, programs like the Columbia program that give you that really, really deep level of knowledge of subject matter expertise on the topic are super helpful for women, because I think we tend to, and I think this is borne out by data, we tend to feel less confident in our knowledge level and ability level, or tend to feel like we need a higher level of subject matter expertise to really position ourselves as experts than do our male counterparts. So I think, you're doing the right thing by being part of a program like this. And then it's just a matter of finding where in the industry is the best fit for you, because it is a very broad industry with a lot of different ways to pursue a career.
Super helpful perspective. Anything to add, Mary?
I could talk about this for an hour, but the one thing I'm going to tell you is get a sponsor. We talked about mentors. Sponsorship is like really important in our industry, and it's usually up chain. It's not a peer. This is somebody up the route, up the chain that can bring your name up in a room where you may have no business being in. Philip did that for me in this panel, right? I came in here 10% prepared. My previous self would have had to be 100% prepared, but I know myself, I know this topic. I feel very confident coming in that prepared, right? I had a sponsor that brought my name in. So I started talking to people. Sponsor will bring your name up when you're not around. And they're usually, no offense, they're usually males and they're usually in charge. So you got to get one of those, become friends with them. Don't be intimidated by them. Just what Adam said, like I was directly with my CEO. He appreciated it. And I was like 6 months in the business. I was like, hey, there's no maternity leave. What is happening? Like, I need some help. Okay. And so like we had a relationship. So get a sponsor once you get into a firm. That's usually up the chain.
Super helpful perspectives. The difference between mentorship and sponsorship, very well explained. And thank you all. At this point, it's time to wrap it up, although we could go on and on. Thank you all for taking the time to share your wisdom, expertise, your perspectives. We appreciate you, and you should consider yourself a friend of Columbia University going forward. Next time you're in New York City, give a heads up. Would love to host you all on campus. Thanks to the panelists. Thanks to the audience. The power of niching. I hope we brought it to life. Have a great rest of the day.